In this video we are going to take a closer look at the January Deathwatch tournament results, which are bound to be special due to a mixture of old and new rules, depending on the actual event and their TO's decision making. The tournaments covered are as following. Using the old Warzone Nephilim rules, we have the Nottingham 40k Super Major, as well as the Las Vegas Open, both of them being big events. I then also managed to dig out a smaller tournament using the new Arks of Omen rules already, the Winter War 2.0. Over the course of the video, we will go through all the relevant results and lists in an attempt to find out whether the Deathwatch Army of Renown managed to go out with a bang and how we are doing in these early stages of Arks of Omen with new rules and discounted points. For the final part, I will offer my personal conclusions and a quick wrap up.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer, and I will be guiding you through this video.
Diving right into the tournament results, first we have the Nottingham 40k Super Major, an event featuring 380 players over 5 initial rounds. Here we have a single Deathwatch player, Phil Roebuck, going 3-2, ending up on rank 145. His matchups were as following. Round 1 a win against Snits, followed by 2 losses against Dwarfs and Clowns, then rounds 4 and 5 wins against World Eaters and Tau. Looking at his list, with the old rules but no more Army of Renown, he settled for the following. For HQs, he went with comparably cheap picks, Foot-slogging Librarian, Primaris Captain with Rights of War and the Tomb, as well as a Primaris Tech Marine with nowhere to hide. For troops, he then brought a single squad of Incursors as a potential forward deploy option and 2 Proteus kill teams with the formerly cheap Wets, as well as Van Wets with Lightning Claw and Chainsword. For elites, we then have a squad of Blade Guard veterans, double Redemptors, as well as double Contemptors. To round up the list, we have double Eliminator and a single Eradicator squad. Even though the recent rules changes have shuffled the power of certain datasheets anew, I think the interesting takeaways here are the Eliminator squads with the Instigator Bolt Carbine on the Sarge, allowing the unit to pop out from behind cover, take their shots and disappear again. Even though Eliminators have great synergy in a Spectre skill team, I think taking Eliminator squads for a cheap 75 points is always a good additional investment. Likewise, Eradicators can now benefit from free strategic reserves and some free war gear, making them excellent picks outside of an Indomitor kill team. Redemptors also got some minor discounts and make excellent additions, though I think the Relic Contemptors not getting any price drops and still requiring the CP tags have gotten the short end of the stick. As I mentioned in a previous video, I am very much looking forward to the upcoming Brutalis Dreadnought and the potential return of some Dreadnought heavy lists. Overall, great result given the state of the rules. Moving on to the second tournament, the Las Vegas Open, featuring a grand total of 960 players over 6 initial rounds. The interesting part here is that LVO made the rules cut by December 31st, meaning that playing our Army of Renown was still legit. Here we have 4 Deathwatch players, Michael Costello himself on rank 57, going 5-1, and we then also have Jason Lenore going 2-1-3, Lou Rollins going 2-4, and Gio Kayanding going 1-5. Out of these 4 players, 3 played the Army of Renown, while Michael Costello obviously brought his famous threat spam list. I'm kidding, of course. Jason Lenore, the second best ranked Deathwatch player, brought a quite interesting non-Army of Renown list, to which we will get in just a moment. But first things first, Michael Costello with his 5-1 got best in faction, and his matchups were as following. Round 1 a drop, Round 2 a loss against Tau, then followed by 4 wins against Chaos Demons, Orcs, Dwarfs and Imperial Knights. Looking at his list, what a blast of the past. For HQs, he brought along a Foot-slogging Librarian, a Primaris Chaplain on bike with the beacon, as well as a Watchmaster. For troops, he brought a Forest kill team with Assault Hellblasters, nice to see those back into an AOR list, an Indomitor with 4 Bolter Aggressors and a single Inceptor, and then of course triple Costello style Proteus kill teams. Of special note here is that he did add in a Vanwet with Heavy Thunderhammer after all, perhaps a bit of Clangby style rubbed off on him. All of these kill team compositions continue to work well even beyond the Army of Renown, some like the Primaris ones at a lower overall points cost, and the Proteus kill team staying roughly the same in points, but with some additional free war gear. Congratulations on the great result, and certainly a worthy way to end the age of our Army of Renown. Then looking at Chase and Lenore's list, the one player at LVO not going with the Army of Renown. For HQs, we have a Phobos Librarian, loaded with Lord of Deceit and the paragon of their chapter Ultramarines Warlord traits. We then also have a Primaris Chaplain on bike with the Tomb. For troops, we have 4 Proteus kill teams, which are set up as a trimmed down version of the Costello Clangby style kill team, limited to 9 models each, most likely due to points constraints. As a side note, 2 of these 4 use Heavy Thunderhammers on both the Black Shield and the Watch Sergeant, which is an illegal loadout as the requirement is 1 per 5 Deathwatch veteran models. The way this is usually done is to give the Heavy Hammer to the Sarge, equip the Black Shield with a regular hammer plus a melee offhand for the additional attack on the profile, and then load any additional Heavy Hammers on the Vanwets, which in turn can all take a Heavy Hammer if they wanted to. As a 5th troop's choice, he went with a Spectre's kill team with 4 Eliminators and a single Incursor. For elites, he had a Primaris Apothecary with the Tisted Bind and the Beacon and Chalice, which is an interesting pick on its own. While it is usually recommended to run the chief version with the Selfless Healer Warlord trait, a basic version would still offer the Feel No Pain save, would be able to pull a kill team out of harm's way with a defensively used beacon, the healing would be less consistent, and the rest would cost CP. Personally, especially now with the reduced cost, I think that the Chief Upgrade and Selfless Healer are well worth it. To round the list up, he then had a basic squad of Eliminators, a squad of Eradicators with a multi-melta, as well as a Whirlwind. As I was already mentioning in regard to the list from the first tournament, these are now all great picks given circumstances. All in all, interesting list approach for sure. Moving on to the third and final tournament, the Winter War 2.0, a small tournament with 20 players only over 5 rounds, but using the new Arks of Omen rules. Here we have a single Deathwatch player, Yann Tran, ending up on rank 6, going 3-2. His matchups were as following. Round 1 a loss against Archangels, followed by 3 wins against T-Sons, Guard and Necrons, and then round 5 a loss against T-Sons. Looking at his list, for HQs, he went with a Captain on bike with Nowhere to Hide and the Dominus Aegis Relic, the latter one certainly now back in business that Armor of Contempt has been removed. Furthermore, he had a Phobos Librarian with Lore of Deceit, Primaris Chaplain on bike with the Beacon, and another basic Librarian, a stunt that we can pull off now that the Arks of Omen detachment allows 4 HQs. I also really like the idea of double librarians, which opens up some extra secondaries, certainly an area Deathwatch now struggles with. For troops, he really did his homework regarding rules changes. For his kill team with 4 Outriders and Sergeant with Thunderhammer, great way to play them. Then double Indomitors, one with 5 Plasma Inceptors, the other with 4 Aggressors and 1 Plasma Inceptor. This was obviously before the points nerf to the Plasma Inceptors, and one would have to find alternatives like a more mixed unit style of Indomitor with 2 to 3 Plasma Inceptors, but nonetheless great picks at the time. He then also went with a Clangby style Proteus kill team, including a Teleport Homer. Now, whether this is legal or not is a topic of much debate among the Deathwatch community, and my advice here would be to always check with your TO. Last but not least, he brought a Spectre's kill team with 4 Eliminators and a Haywire Mining Cursor, as well as a squad of Eradicators with multi-melta. Overall, this list really made full use of the recent series of changes, and all these kill team compositions and additional picks work really well in Deathwatch lists going forward in Arks of Omen as far as I'm concerned. Plus my Inceptors aside, of course. On these, I went into this in more detail in my latest video. Feel free to check that one out if you haven't already. The link is in the description. Nerfs or not, great list to take some inspiration from. All in all, January brought a lot of changes to both the game and the Deathwatch, and it is of course far too early to tell where Deathwatch will be ending up, especially with some of the larger events still having played by the old rules. Nonetheless, my personal takeaways would be as following. Even with the increase in base cost, a Costello Clanby style Proteus kill team still delivers, especially now that we can load all 4 wets with storm shields and some additional punch. Depending on local meta and playstyle, it comes down to a choice between more durability with Terminators and more speed damage with heavy Thunder Hammers on the Van Wets. Having at least one of each seems to be a good compromise. Furthermore, both Eliminator and Eradicator squads taken on their own are highly recommended now that the Army of Renown restrictions are gone, while I would very much argue in favor of Spectre's kill team for that nice synergy between the Infiltrators and the Eliminators. There is of course always the possibility to just take additional Eliminator squads. For the Eradicators, placing them in free strategic reserves is a very appealing prospect. Furthermore, I think the Dominus Sieges belongs back into any kill team or Dreadnought-centered list, and I really like the double librarian approach by Yann. For the Indomitors, as previously mentioned, I think Plasma Inceptor spam is off the table after the nerfs, but running something like a mixed unit with 2 aggressors and 3 Plasma Inceptors remains a viable option. Otherwise, 4 Boltstorm aggressors and a single Bolter Inceptor is dirty cheap now and packs a punch even without the AOR stratagem. Looking forward to seeing with what kind of Deathwatch Ark of Omen lists people will come up with in February and beyond. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at Deathwatch January tournament results, including the big Nottingham 40k Super Major and Las Vegas Open events going by the old rules, as well as the smaller Winter War 2.0 event going Arks of Omen already. Congratulations to Michael Costello, making a quick and, as far as the Army of Renown goes, a final comeback with Deathwatch, piloting his signature Costello-style kill teams to a great 5-1 over a result at LVO. Furthermore, while it is of course too early to make an accurate prediction, Yann has given us a first taste of a promising competitive Deathwatch list in Arks of Omen, going 3-2 at the Winter War 2.0 tournament. It is of course a bit unfortunate that Plasma Inceptors have been nerfed, and as such the Indomitor kill teams have to be reworked, but there is still plenty to take away from that list. Double Librarians for HQs, for his kill team with 4 Infantry Outriders, Clanby style Proteus kill team, and of course the to me still mandatory Spectre's kill team with Eliminators, and the option to redeploy them with Lord of Deceit, which now has to go on a Phobos HQ, such as the Librarian in the absence of the Army of Renown exclusive Warlord trait for the Sergeant. Then, as seen in both old and new lists, Eliminator and Eradicator squads are well worth considering now that we are no longer tied to the AOR datasheet restrictions. Great times for us to go back to the drawing board and get creative with Deathwatch list building once more. So that's it for the Deathwatch January tournament results and the end of the Army of Renown. What do you guys think about these particular lists and results? And what kind of changes are you going to make to your own lists? Does Deathwatch have any chance of winning a tournament in Arks of Omen? Let me know in the comments. Finally, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. I do also have a Patreon page. If you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.